It's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me. You can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky. Come get high with me. That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
So they want me down and out. Ay, we ain't going out like that. We ain't going out like that. Watch me go and bounce right back. Down for the count, but that house strike.
And we're back. Welcome to another episode of Whole Brother Live. As I'm going live right now, Elon Musk is live tweeting, going off on President Trump. And he's saying he's on the Epstein list and a variety of other things. We are in interesting times, people. That's what's going on right now. But I'm not here to talk about that today. That is the latest breaking news, though. Before jumping into my topics for today, I want to make you aware June is Men's Health Month, and for Men's Health Month, the Whole Brother Mission is attempting to raise $30,000 by the end of the month. So we want to raise $1,000 a day. If we do meet that goal of $1,000 per day, $30,000 total by the end of the month, it'll be matched by a private donor for a total of $60,000 toward Black men's mental health. So, of course, we are asking you to consider sharing or make a tax-deductible donation to this GoFundMe. You can find it at atwbm.com, or if you already have it saved somewhere, easily go out to our website, wholebrothermission.com. But wanted to make you aware of that. Again, it's tax-deductible. We are way ahead. I think we're sitting at about $12,000 right now. So we're close to halfway there, and it's only June 5th. So please pass it on. That's free, and if you can donate, that would be appreciated. And please join us this fall for a tour of different HBCUs discussing mental health and things of that nature. So thank you in advance. Now, playing with Parenthood. You know, I am kind of riled up about this, and sometimes I have notes, and sometimes, depending on how riled up I am about the topic, I just come in here and talk with no notes. Today, I have no notes, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing, but we about to see. But I want to deal with the last kind of viral topic before Elon started tweeting about the president, and it was DDG and Halle. And I spoke about this in the last episode. I spoke about it earlier today. This thing that exists. I'm going to address this from both sides, the women and the men, but particularly I want to deal with it from the men's side first. And I said this in a video earlier today, but for a lot of us as men, we go through issues with women in a romantic space or even in a non-romantic space. And then those unresolved issues, those offenses, those hurts, those insecurities that come as a result of our previous interactions with women, they then get applied to how we view a whole bunch of other women. And that's a really big problem that doesn't get checked, because a lot of times other guys in the friend group also have bitterness toward women. So they amen the same stuff that the other guys are saying. So it's like the blind leading the blind. All of us sitting here together, bitter with women generally, but more so because of specific issues we have with specific women in our lives. So rather than resolving the issue or getting over the issue you have with those three exes, you now talk crap about women on Twitter, women generally. Or you do what some men are doing with these celebrity stories, where you see a situation like Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez, or you see a situation like DDG and Halle, and you assume that the woman is in the wrong, and you tweet as if you know these people and you have hardcore evidence that the woman is in the wrong. You only see it that way, and it's not based off of researching those celebrity situations. It's just based off of the fact that you're bitter with women. So many guys are there. There are men that are married, supposedly in happy relationships, who will go in about women on Twitter all day long. And I'm not saying you can't critique people. I'm not saying women are beyond critique. And I'll get to that later, because I have some smoke for women too who act as if all women are beyond critique. But that's another conversation for later in this episode. But we don't recognize as men, a lot of us are bitter, and we'll say the things that we say from a place of bitterness, we rebrand it as wisdom or putting you on game about these women. No, you have not researched trends amongst women. You are just venting about things that you went through with the previous women in your life. And to a level of emotional intelligence is needed for us to recognize that the women that you interact with is a percentage of a percentage of a percentage of all women. So if you're going to want to speak about women, you got to look at women as a whole and not just your experiences, but because we feel our experiences so strongly, we then begin to generalize. So even if you have five exes and you got cheated on by all five exes, you're going to begin to make statements about women generally that they tend to cheat. When in actuality, that's just your experience, and your experience as one person is so limited. But so many of us don't take the time to parse through that, which is why I'm pro therapy, where we have a chance to do that. But that is what I see in regard to how we're responding to a lot of the stuff related to Halle Bailey and DDG. Um, and then on top of that, there is this presumption of innocence also that exists if you like somebody. So if you have issues with women in your life that you haven't resolved, then you go for the next of women you don't even know, like Megan Thee Stallion and Halle Bailey. And I'm not saying anyone's right or wrong as far as those celebrities. I'm saying if you don't know, then stop speaking like you know, or stop speaking from a place of hurt as if it's facts about these people. But the other side of it is when you like an artist or when you like a streamer, then you're defending them to the death on the internet. And we all need to be able to parse through these things in a neutral way and not be completely driven by emotion. There are two cognitive distortions that I would say come up quite a bit in regard to these conversations. One is all or nothing thinking. That's where you completely remove nuance. Uh, that is where you don't acknowledge the gray areas, and it's either one extreme or the other. And the other is emotional reasoning. You like DDG, you feel like he's a cool guy, so now he must be innocent of anything that Hallie's accusing him of. And because you're bitter related to women, you now are accusing Hallie of things based off of fake evidence you found on Twitter or things that you really know nothing about. So I'm just here, again, not to take a side in any of the beefs that these people are having with their partners, but to address the dysfunction that a lot of us have as men and call it out. Because again, so many of us are in friend circles where the blind are leading the blind, or you're surrounded by yes men and nobody's really telling you about yourself. You have unresolved issues with your mom. You have unresolved issues with your exes. And because of that, you now assume that all women are in the wrong whenever you see a situation where a woman is beefing with a man. And you got to work through that rather than generalizing or assuming the worst. That is a chip on your shoulder. That's bitterness. And you're not even being reasonable and looking at the facts in some of these situations because you're so committed to this idea that, yep, there go women lying again. There go women cheating again. There go women being shady again. That's your story, but that's not all the women's story. And when we talk about accountability, we got to look at the fact that if you went through those situations, in part, you may be responsible because who you chose. So you might choose women who lie a lot, but that is not reflective of the nature of women. So when you start talking about women being liars, that's your experience. That's not the story of women. So let's just start there with being realistic about that. Now, I want to go a couple steps further as it relates to these celebrity stories. It's so fascinating to me how invested people are in these celebrity stories. You know, I keep seeing people use the term more, and I appreciate them being thoughtful in how they engage. But there are so many parasocial relationships, and these people are out here really talking like, speaking on behalf of these people as if they really got some type of history with them. It's very, very, very strange times we're living in. But I must say, Twitter, X, aka Hell, um, most of this stuff I only really see on there. It's not as common in real life or on other apps. Most of the mess is on X. So I'm going to say that's an issue. That's an Elon issue. Uh, but we got Cardi B and Offset and Stefon Diggs. And then we got DDG and Halle. I got some pushback when I decided to talk about the part that women play in this. So I just did some time with the men. I'm going to do some time with the women. I got pushback from a few women when I talked about the decisions that women make. I was speaking specifically about Halle choosing to have a child with DDG. It was strange to me because he already had a reputation online. What we had seen from him online, being a streamer, being a, I guess, up and coming rapper, I don't even want to indict him or seem like I'm making an indictment or casting an indictment about him. But let's just say this. Nothing about his online presence said this is someone to start a family with. It was clear he was a young guy trying to live the stereotypical young rapper life. That's always been what he's presented. So it was strange to me that one will make the decision to have a child with him. So I don't know what was going on with Halle, but it just didn't seem like a good decision. If I had a daughter that was around the age of Halle or younger, I would want her to have enough discernment or insight or wisdom to know, yeah, that's not the type of guy to have a child with. Switch it on over to Cardi B. Many might assume, of course, Cardi's going to make bad decisions because she came from a bad background. She was in the streets. She was a stripper. Some might assume that. That may be the case. But all in all, again, I think it was evidently clear. I've lost count of how many kids and baby mamas Offset already had before he got to Cardi. But it just seems so strange that she chose to take part in that, to become another baby mama to this man. Again, from his public persona, when the Migos first blew up, Offset was incarcerated. What made you think that it was good to have a child with this person? And then I also referenced Sierra, and a lot of the women came chiming in. Don't talk about her. She's in a new relationship with Russell. She's good now. Leave her name out your mouth. History is history. And even though seemingly Sierra's in a better situation now, she also did the same thing I'm talking about that Halle did and that Cardi B did in becoming number whatever on Future's baby mama list. Obviously, there are factors that are going on inside of these women that cause them to make those bad decisions. And I'm saying that conversation needs to be had too. We can do both. We can talk about the bad behaviors of the men involved, but we also need to be able to talk about how can you prevent yourself from even being in this situation? Because I have to be honest, these men showed us who they were. So it's one thing if somebody completely deceived you, and that may have happened behind the scenes in some way that we're not seeing. But these men's public profiles, from my perspective, made it very clear that they're not family men, not happily ever after marriage monogamy men, and not good fathers, from my perspective. All of that was pretty visible, very obvious. So all of us have to have some level of accountability when we put ourselves in obviously bad situations. Again, if you get invited to the White House and the White House says they're going to pick you up, and then it was all a scam and some unsafe people picked you up and took you to the Brown House, and it was all, wasn't what it was supposed to be. Okay, you were completely deceived. But it's another thing when somebody tells you, meet me at a trap house, and you show up at the trap house and you're shocked that there's drugs there. And that is a common trend, and I'm talking about black people. I want to talk about our community. I'm going to deal with the men. I have dealt with the men. But at what point do we also have the conversation about why do you keep choosing to engage with this? You have to make better decisions. If it already quacked like a duck, why were you shocked that it was a duck? And that's not to pile on these women in particular. It's just to have a larger conversation about, hey, ladies, we got to make good decisions. I've said this on multiple occasions, and some of the pushback I've gotten from women has been things that I think are very irrational. Like one woman, in response to me saying similar things before, she pointed out, well, if we were more strategic about who we dated and we only had children with bad men, good men, there's so few good men that we would never have kids. Essentially arguing that we got to make do with what we have. And I hate that that is a legitimate talking point, and some women do feel like they, since they have this goal of having children or being married, they have to pick from bad options because the good options are so limited. I did a seminar years ago with some women were present, and I asked them, would you rather have uh, a bad relationship or no relationship at all? And many of them said a bad relationship because they just want to have something. And that's not a good place to be. And I do think that plays a part in why these women end up in these situations with men who we expected to be bad fathers. It was obvious. Another thing that happens is women try to have happily ever after with men who are visibly not emotionally available. It's obvious from the jump. Um, I think Kodak Black just had a new baby earlier this year, right? Kodak Black, who we keep seeing tripping out on drugs, in and out of jail, still getting new baby mamas. So right now, I'm not talking about Kodak Black's abuse allegations. I'm not talking about his drug use. I'm not talking about what he said publicly. Right now, I'm talking about the women. I'm talking about women that choose to engage with these men. That conversation has to happen too. And I do think it needs to happen amongst women. Intra-gender conversations, women talking to other women. Because one of the other things I wanted to address that happens is women become so pro-women that they end up becoming anti-women by giving bad advice and bad guidance. You're not being realistic with these women as far as the advice you're giving as a big sis uh, about making better choices. The same way that I hold men accountable and they get pissed off with me, women need to do that with each other rather than saying, girl, he did you dirty. Girl, he did you dirty. He did the 6 women before you dirty. What were you expecting by signing up to be number 7? So women have to be honest with each other too. Hold each other accountable in terms of these bad decisions and have those conversations. So yeah, I need sisters to not make excuses. Halle's an adult, DDG's an adult. And I say that because some of the excuses I also saw in relation to what has come up with Halle and DDG was, oh, she was young. She was well above 18 though. She's an adult. And we can't try to create excuses and passes that don't exist in the broader society. So once someone's 18 or over, they're an adult. It doesn't benefit us to keep extending that later and later and giving the youth pass, the young pass. And this has been done for men too. Men be 24 years old and they're like, oh, he was young. He's 24 and he's a dad. Whoever that may be. So we can't keep, it doesn't benefit us to keep using the excuse of youth when the world doesn't look at it that way. So there's accountability that's needed on all sides. And I think some women don't hold other women accountable. They just keep creating this unrealistic world where you're a perpetual victim. Now, when we talk about victims and victimizers, the victimizer is the one that did the bad thing. The victim is the one that got victimized by the victimizer. So women and men can be victims in any given situation. What I'm saying is we also have to prepare women to not put themselves in situations that are dangerous. Like, No, a man should not put a date rape drug in your drink at the club. That shouldn't happen, but it's a reality that it does happen. So now that we know that it does happen, what are we going to say to women? How are we going to counsel them on how to go party? Let's give them safeguards rather than just walking into the club blindly and then complaining after the fact that the bad thing that we already know is happening happened to them. And this ends up being an even more important conversation because it's not just about what happens on a personal level. So if women made better decisions for themselves, if men made better decisions for themselves, if people treated their partners better, that all would benefit them personally. But I'm here to say, even on a more important level, the kids. I shook my head earlier this week looking at the news related to DDG and Halle and Cardi B and Offset and Stefon Diggs because these people have kids. And I feel so sorry for the kids because none of the people in these stories seem ready to be parents. None of the peoples in these stories seem fit to be parents. And I hate to burst your bubble, but being rich does not make you a good parent. It might make you a good provider, but being rich does not make you a good parent. Uh, to the people with a hood mentality on parenting, um, buying kids Jordans or designer clothes does not make you a good parent. It might be cute for the gram, but that does not make you a good parent. So we have to be realistic about what children need, and they need emotionally stable and competent parents. And when I see Cardi B twerking out with Stefon Diggs, I'm not saying women can't have a good time, but I see a pattern of bad decision making. You chose to try to build a family with Offset, who clearly lacks sexual discipline. He cheated on you and embarrassed you multiple times. And now you're twerking on a guy who just had a kid as well, another young guy, balancing fame, who also has gay accusations. And then I remember there was a clip where I think she was alluding to God directing her or telling her to date or to hang out with Stefan. And I mean, it looks like a whole bunch of irresponsible people. And again, if you're so caught up in liking the artist, you might go to the point of making excuses for their behaviors or trying to justify it. Or they did that because of this, or this is why that happened, or you can't judge it too hard, or they were young, or they were going through it. What about the kids? I feel sorry for the kids. And we live in a cultural moment that really encourages people to just be free, specifically women, to be sexually free, do what you want, sleep who you want, be happy, be free, liberation. I understand that that is what's preached for the cultural moment, but can I tell you that that doesn't have good results for the children? Can I tell you about the difficulty of trying to get a person to slow down with trying to live their best life and have the best sex they've ever had, to slow down from that and focus on the mental health needs of their child that they're completely blind to because they're just drinking or smoking or partying? Those things are super important and those things get overlooked. So we have to take parenting seriously in terms of what the kids need, not just financial, but emotional, mental, spiritual. That goes back to who you mate with. So I've spoken to you about being ready as a parent individually, but it also matters who are you having children with. And for many of us, sex is very animalistic and lust driven. So we end up sleeping with someone based off of how they look without consideration for how do they parent. And then that's how you end up in these situations like we're seeing with Cardi B and Offset and with DDG and Halle. The people are trying to build a family with someone that wasn't prepared to parent or not equipped to parent, ill prepared for that moment. But those are questions that you have to ask before you open your legs or drop your drawers. So I want us as a people to stop complaining and crying and having a crisis after the fact when what we were walking into was obvious. The Bible, in one of the chapters of Proverbs, it might be 7, it talks about walking away or being led away like an ox being led to the slaughter. In many cases, we're looking at the slaughter. It has a flashing sign with lights that says slaughter, and we walk toward it and then cry that there's blood everywhere and pain and dead and body parts everywhere. But it was a slaughter though, and it was clear. So I'm talking about the situations where it's very clear. And there are a lot of reasons that are obvious that any therapist or person in mental or emotional wellness would understand. So a lot of this is rhetorical. I'm aware of why. What I'm saying is we need to lean into dealing with those things rather than just complaining or making excuses after the fact. Rather than encouraging women to have, I know this is kind of old at this point, but to have a hot girl summer. Because women will have a hot girl summer and then go have a child with somebody like, they start having a hot girl summer, they're hanging out casually, the casual situation turns into a more long-term situation. You met a guy during your hot girl summer that turned into a long-term relationship, and then you have a child with him. But look at the starting point. You tried to force a square peg into a circle hole. You wanted to make all of this work, but the inception was lust and fun. So at what point do we talk more about responsibility? Because the kids need it. I don't want to predict a bad future for these children, but it's not looking good for Halle and DDG's child. It's not looking good for Cardi B and Offset's children. And seeing how this goes time and time again, God forbid Cardi get pregnant by Stefon Diggs. Because odds are they're probably sleeping together too, right? So I want accountability for us as a people who are not minors, who are adults with responsibilities and authority and autonomy. We got to make better decisions. So much of this goes back to decision making and personal discretion. And we can't make excuses for bad behavior. It's not looking good for those kids, and it's not looking good for the kids of people that subscribe to this approach. Can I say to you, I lost count of how many black women I saw online applauding Cardi B, who's already a mother of I don't know how many kids, a divorcee out there twerking. Cardi, go have fun. Do you, girl. Go, 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 go. That's not the advice that Cardi needs. Cardi has to work through why she even put herself in this situation to begin with. Cardi got to heal from some things. Cardi was in the streets drugging men and stripping. She got some stuff to work through, and being a millionaire doesn't fix all of that. She was just online earlier this week saying she wants Offset to die slow. That's what she said online. She's not in a good place. But we got women applauding. Go, girl. Twerk on Stefon Diggs. Have a good time. I see degenerate behavior from my people all the time, and all I can do is shake my head. What about the kids? What about the kids? Is Stefon Diggs going to be a good stepdaddy to Culture and the other child? Not looking like it. Doesn't seem that way. This looks like a whole bunch of immature adults just trying to have a good time and not dealing with their root issues. And we got to be real about that rather than just applauding people because they look cute together. We are too old for women to be talking about Cardi and Stefon look cute together when kids' lives are on the line. Degeneracy. Got to do better, folks. Bringing it back to the men. On another level, and this is going to be a curveball that y'all probably didn't expect me to go in this direction. I spoke about this before in relation to Shannon Sharp and the situation with that white woman and Jalen Green and Drea. And we see it here again. I can't speak on these people directly because I don't know what their situation is, but I know what I've observed. And I know that something exists. There's such a stigma and a dark cloud around. I can speak on behalf of us, on behalf of black men, straight black men amongst each other. We understand that there is a lack of respect and disdain and stigma tied to being a gay black man or a man that deals with men in some way. Although our culture has progressed and it's Pride Month and it would seem as if though everyone should just treat everyone right, love is love, the reality is on the ground, straight men will disown another man if it comes out that he's gay or likes men. Women who you may be interested in may not want to deal with you in a romantic sense anymore or be completely turned off by you if they found out that you are gay. There's a whole bunch of stigma tied to it. So with that, some men, when they get those kinds of allegations, they then try to overcompensate to overshadow those allegations by dealing with multiple women or a high-profile woman. So I spoke before about Jalen Green got those allegations. He was trending related to that because of some videos that came out about him. And then he pops out with a child with Drea. Shannon Sharp was getting those allegations. Not saying that this is when it started. I don't know. But he was getting those same allegations. And now we see him in a situation with this white girl. Stefon Diggs was getting those allegations. Look up Chris Blake Griffith. And then now you out here with a very visible woman, Cardi B. And I don't know for sure. But I think that's strategic. I think that's PR on his end. I don't know for sure. But I'm making you aware of there is this idea of overcompensation to cover up something. Or even if there's nothing to cover up, there's this idea of relations, meaning sex, and relationships that men engage in with women just to sway the opinions of the public. This is surely about perception management and not about romance. So they may not be secretly gay, but they're just trying to manage the perception because they don't want the label attached to them. That is a very real thing. So I think it's important for us to be aware that that dynamic exists as well before we encourage these situations. But it seems like people are so driven by the artists they like and who looks cute together. And these are people 20, 30, 40 plus speaking on these relationships and encouraging these behaviors. This happens at the celebrity level, but it also happens at the community level too. We got to stop encouraging people to date people just because we think they look good together. Or because you deserve it, because you went through such and such with this guy, you deserve this. At some point, we have to be willing to tell our loved ones, friends, and family, hey, another relationship might not be what's best for you right now. A F buddy might not be what's best for you right now. So many people use sex to cope with deep personal issues, and then they end up in someone's office like mine or a therapist or counselor, and we have to help pick up the pieces. And I'm just saying from the other side of it, I wish people had more wisdom in their community because people's friends and family encourage it. So it's like a cyclical issue because people don't know how to cope with emotional stressors. They use sex, drugs, and alcohol to cope. They have people in their community that use sex, drug, and alcohol to cope. So they encourage that person to use sex, drugs, and alcohol to cope. And the cycle continues. And the children that are born out of a relationship between two people that use sex, drug, and alcohol to cope, the children are neglected. and then grow up with serious emotional issues, personality disorders, and other things because of neglectful parents who weren't there for them. And then the generational curses or cycles continue. So, nothing about this stuff is cute or funny. There are very deep issues going on here. And it frustrates me that many people in mass aren't even having the necessary conversations. They're just focused on who looks cute. And men do it too. There are men that are like, yeah, man, I wish I could be with Cardi B. All they're looking at is her shape. And no consideration for, hey, she don't seem to be a good decision maker either. There are some men who I know would beat down the wall to be Cardi's second baby daddy. They would love to do that without any consideration for how she parents, who she sleeps with, the connection to Offset, her patterns, how she copes. No consideration for any of that. They just looking at the money and the shape. And that's unfortunate. So, all in all, we gotta sit back and be real with ourselves about dysfunctional patterns. Consider personal emotional wellness. Consider what's best for the children before you just make a decision based off of who looks good. These things are super important in terms of how we assess these celebrity situations, but how we even assess situations on a personal level. I'm gonna get in some folks' business here, but this is a critique for the men that do this and the women that date the men that do this or have children with the men that do this. But if he smokes regularly, whether it's weed or something else, I know that there are a lot of women that don't even think twice about it. They don't even hesitate that the man that they're dating or about to have a child with has a drug issue. They ignore it and then move forward as if that's not a major red flag about that person's wellness. The men will have children, argue with the mom about custody, ignoring the fact that they may use or sell drugs. And if they had the child in their presence, that would then put the child in danger. So she had a child with a drug dealer, drug user. Drug dealer, drug user dad wants custody or wants the child to stay in his presence when you can get arrested or shot at by rivals at any given moment. These are things that I would say are normalized in culture that we don't give enough thought because we're so used to people smoking. It's just a little weed, no big deal, right? No. Weed can be a very big deal, especially for someone with an undiagnosed mental health issue. It could be making the symptoms worse. Uh, Talk about cannabis-induced psychosis, worsening undiagnosed depression, and a series of other issues, and not to mention all the other drugs that people do. And this doesn't escape women. You know, some women do the drugs, but some women are very clearly alcoholics. And men mate with women that are alcoholics. And they overlook it because they like when she comes home drunk and wants to have sex. So they zoom in on that one aspect and ignore all the other aspects on how her alcoholism makes her a bad partner or mother. So I wanted to just specifically address some of the ways this looks in our culture on how we make decisions on who to date and who to mate with. I'm sure height matters to some women, right? But height never won anyone Dad of the Year. Height never maintained a marriage. So sure, you can have your preferences, but you really got to be realistic about what it takes to sustain a relationship and to raise a child well. Because so many of us are just popping out emotionally dysfunctional kids that are making the world a harder place to live in because you didn't give them what they needed. So I need us to take parenting a lot more seriously and not use kids as an ornament or a decoration. Not use kids to get more views on your live stream on Twitch. Not use kids to make a Instagram page to get more attention and probably monetize. Not be a FaceTime daddy. And not use kids for content, for likes and comments and engagement. And I hate that seems to be where we are in a cultural moment. People are just using these kids for show. Can I tell you that people that are trained and people that are untrained can see a depressed child from a mile away? You might not notice it, but we see that your child is depressed, emotionally repressed. At a young age, already done with life because of the environment and home that you have them in. So yeah, they got on Jordans, but they're dying on the inside at 9 because they've already seen the worst of the worst. So I hate to piss on anybody's parade, but these are the things that we gotta think about. These are the more important discussions that need to be had, and I hope you're willing to have them. I hope you open yourself up to having hard conversations with friends about some of the things I brought up today. Be willing to go there, and be willing to redirect people, men or women. You can redirect them to the Whole Brother Mission to find a therapist and work through some of this. I hope Stefon, Cardi, DDG, Halle all get in therapy as soon as possible. And I hope they slow down with dating and making more children, and they get themselves together. ATWBM.com. You can get connected. And also, again, as I mentioned before, please consider supporting our GoFundMe. Go to wholebrothermission.com or atwbm.com. It's right there. We're trying to raise $30,000 by the end of the month. If we meet that goal, it'll be matched for a total of $60,000 toward Black mental health. And we'll see you this fall for our HBCU tour. I believe we'll be at Morgan State, Southern University, FAMU, I believe, Shaw University, and Langston University. So be on the lookout for that. And if you'd like to bring our tour to your area, email us at info@wholebrothermission.com. Thank you for joining me today. Please share this far and wide. Let's have some real community discussions and focus on the stuff that matters. Have a good one.